Welcome to Broadway Cove and 735 Davis. All right, give it up. Let's get this crowd fired up. I'm Jack Gardner. I'm president and CEO of the Jon Stewart Company. And on behalf of JSCO and our partner Bridge Housing Corporation, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you all to the grand opening of Broadway Cove and 735 Davis.
And I'm Brad Wiblin. Jack and I will be your co-MCs today. We promise to try to keep things moving. Thank you all for the part you played in making this possible. And as Jack said, we also are honored to have partnered with Jon Stewart on yet another adventure, and happy to celebrate it. So thank you for celebrating with us today.
Thanks, Brad. All right, we're going to do a little tag teaming, so just bear with us. The mayor's running a couple minutes late, so we'll be a little bit out of sequence in the program, but we're going to rock and roll. On this, the former site of the Embarcadero Freeway, with 88 Broadway, where we are now, being owned by the Port of San Francisco, and 735 Davis being owned by the City and County of San Francisco, we are reminded of the long histories of these sites, starting with the many generations of Ohlone indigenous people who lived, fished, and hunted here, both on land and on the bay itself, which still made up much of the site before it was filled in. By the 1850s, these properties were on the edge of San Francisco's notorious Barbary Coast red light district, and evidence of alcohol, tobacco, drugs, gambling, and crimping, the practice of kidnapping unsuspecting men to serve on maritime crews, were all found during archaeological excavations of these sites. And in fact, many historic artifacts that were unearthed during the excavation have been preserved and will be on display in both of the building lobbies. If you went that way, you saw an empty glass case. Come back in a month or two, it'll be filled with all kinds of interesting stuff commemorating the site. After a great deal of subsequent filling in of the bay and various residential and commercial uses here, the site was then developed as part of the Embarcadero Freeway, which opened in 1959 and operated until it was damaged by the Loma Prieta earthquake and demolished in 1991. And it was then, thanks to the steadfast advocacy of the community, including our friends and colleagues at the Chinatown Community Development Center, that ensured that these newly surplus pieces of publicly owned land would be dedicated to a critical public use here in San Francisco, affordable housing.
To continue the origin story a little bit, in 2016, the Mayor's Office of Housing issued a request for proposals on behalf of the city and the port for two parcels that were affectionately known as 322-1 and the DWP parcel, and that's where we are today. As is the Mayor's Office of Housing's custom, they knew exactly what they wanted. They gave us a very detailed program of rough sizes and unit mix and affordability. And there's some very unique things that unfolded here as a result of that. We also had the benefit of a community design workshop that was organized by the city, and I think we were the beneficiary of drawings and input from the community. As many of you know, this community is very engaged. So with that information in hand, we set about the task of trying to assemble a team to design, build, operate, finance the building. Well, Bridge Housing and Jon Stewart had been successful collaborators on a project not far from here on Bay Street, we affectionately know as North Beach Place. So 12 years before, we built senior housing, family housing, childcare, neighborhood serving retail, all of the components that exist here. So it was not a very big leap for us to say, let's use what we learned there and let's recreate it here, but you know, state of the art 2016 at the time. Memorable for me. I've been doing this for about 25 years, and I'll never forget about a month of effort, which is about how much time you have once an RFP comes out to conceive of a building and then present that to the city. And got to work with Jack very closely, his colleague Margaret Miller, my colleague Kevin Griffith, but most importantly, Jon Stewart was directly involved. And I'd known Don for a long time, I'd known John a long time. He was friends with Don Turner. But I'd see him in the office and I'd say hi, but I'd never been sort of shoulder to shoulder with him. And made it very memorable. He brought his kind of standard humor and passion to this effort, which included a neighborhood serving restaurant here that was desired by the neighborhood and desired by us, but not a small decision. It basically was an investment that Bridge and John Stewart were going to make in the neighborhood. So I'm excited. These buildings to me kind of represent, you know, the physical manifestation of everything that John was about, right? Legions of San Franciscans of all incomes and ages are going to live here with dignity for a long time. So for myself, on a very personal level, I'm grateful to have participated in a small way alongside John Stewart. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Brad. It is definitely with some mixed feelings that we cut the ribbon, of course. But following our selection by the city and the neighborhood representatives as the developer of the sites, the development team embarked upon an intensive community outreach and design process involving multiple neighborhood groups that Marie will talk to a little bit later, the port itself, the city, historic preservationists, and many additional stakeholders. Really a collaborative process that I think really represents the best of San Francisco. A lot of give and take, a lot of very heartfelt commitment to serving the needs of the neighborhood and the community, and really generating public benefit, leveraging a public-private partnership for public benefit. Through that process, we put together what John called the mother of all mixed-use projects. As Brad mentioned, a mixed-use, mixed-income, and multi-generational development that includes affordable housing for low-income seniors and families, the city's first subsidized units for missing middle moderate-income households, permanent supportive housing for formerly homeless households, neighborhoods serving retail. We're targeting a coffee shop cafe in the senior building, a family-style restaurant here in Broadway Cove, a mixed-income childcare center operated by the YMCA of San Francisco, the Chinatown Y, and a robust resident services program from Lutheran Social Services and the YMCA, serving all the residents of the two buildings. With a broad range of unit sizes, including 24 studios, 65 one-bedrooms, 49 twos, and 24 three-bedroom units, an income mix that ranges from formerly homeless households at 0 to 30% of area median income, up to the missing middle households at 120% of median, and a preference for households with certificates of participation, who are formerly displaced by redevelopment activity, and for households being relocated from the city's dynamic Hope SF redevelopment projects in Potrero and Viz Valley. This development makes new, high-quality, affordable housing units available for every type of San Franciscan in need of a helping hand, and we're very proud of that. But this kind of project doesn't happen without political will, vision, and fearlessness from our elected partners. So it's a great pleasure for me. I mentioned earlier the land underlying Broadway Cove, owned by the Port of San Francisco. The port graciously granted us a long-term ground lease so the site could be developed as affordable housing. I'm therefore very pleased to introduce, for our next comments, the Executive Director of the Port of San Francisco, one of only 12 women directing ports in the United States, and there are over 350 of them, by the way. Makes her pretty special. Let's welcome Elaine Forbes.
Thank you so much, Jack. It's true, ports aren't really doing that great on gender equality, but we hope they move along. So the origin story has already really been told, as well as a lot of the details of the units. So I will skip that part in my remarks. First and foremost, we're so excited to see everyone today. This is an incredibly important project for the port. We hadn't always gotten development right in this part of town, but this project really really came together for us. And generally speaking, port property is not appropriate for housing because it's a private use. So we really had to work with our State Lands Commission to identify that this was appropriate for housing, and we found a 75-year ground lease to allow the project to happen. And I want to thank my staff that are here today who worked so hard with the State Lands Commission, so hard with the community residents to get this place right. And as the director of the port, I can't say how proud we are to live in a community that would bring affordable housing into a very high-cost area and in the waterfront property for affordable housing for people and a welcoming in the neighborhood for diversity and equity. We're just incredibly proud to be part of this day. So thank you so much for all being here. We can't wait for the ribbon cutting. Thank you.
I want to add my thanks, Elaine, to you and the port for the amazing partnership that has allowed us to be here today. Our next speaker is a fighter for his neighborhood and for affordable housing, and a real true champion for his residents and neighbors of District 3. When this project was being conceived in 2015, 2016, Supervisor Peskin was running for, I believe, his third term after a little time off. And he took office just in time, really, to be a force in helping get this beautiful complex built. Please join me in warmly welcoming Supervisor Aaron Peskin. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. It is really a pleasure to be back with the team that I started with 20 years ago, Bridge and John Stewart Company at North Beach Place, which gave me the opportunity to work with John on a project that was impossible. So many people to thank. Let me join Jack in thanking the community. This is the same progressive community that supported more density and more affordability at North Beach Place over on Bay Street. It is the same community that came together, the Barbary Coast neighbors, North Beach, Chinatown, Telegraph Hill, to support this project. I miss John Stewart. It was great to be here when we actually turned the first shovelful of dirt. It seems like it was yesterday. But this project was a long time in the making, and there are so many people to thank along the way. Let me start by thanking God for the Loma Prieta earthquake. And then let's move on to Mayor Agnos, who made the tough command decision to tear that freeway that separated the northeast corner of San Francisco from our waterfront. And let me fill in the history between 1991, when that freeway came down, and 2016, when that RFP went out. It wasn't an easy history, and it long predates the desire for affordable housing at this location. The original bill from then Senator Quentin Kopp required all of these former freeway parcels to be disposed of for cash to pay for the Embarcadero roadway structure. We overcame that. In 1996, the Chinese Chamber of Commerce wrote a series of memoranda, which I have unearthed, that are remarkable in their vision for reuniting Chinatown with what was the main transportation link, the Embarcadero Freeway. And that led to the 3 phases of improvements along the Embarcadero. That led to the one and only affordable housing project. Remember, Mayor Brown, at that point, there were 4 parcels. Wanted one to be affordable housing, another to be Central Police Station, a third to be a Class A hotel, and the 4th, of course, Sue Bierman Park down the street. Were it not for that pushing from the community, Broadway Sansom would have been a police station and not affordable housing. This would have been a hotel and not affordable housing. So I want to thank everybody who made that dream a reality. And my predecessor, now our newest city attorney, David Chiu, for carrying that legacy for 6 years in the interim and making sure that we turned car space into people space. Congratulations, one and all.
Thanks, Supervisor. Yeah, that actually made the financing and the development the easy part of this project, I think, maybe. And that's not usually the case. It's not easy. So and thank you. You practically introduced the next speaker, Supervisor, for your leadership and for your introduction, your gracious comments. Pulling off a project like Broadway Cove and 735 requires both local and state leadership and resources. And we've had an unparalleled champion representing our interests in Sacramento for many years, even if he has recently returned to his hometown. So it's my privilege and honor to introduce former supervisor, former board president, former assemblyman, former chair of the State Housing and Community Development Committee, and San Francisco's current and first Asian and American city attorney, David Chiu. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. It is so good to be home. And let me just say that I've been following the weather this week, and it was supposed to rain today, but I think it's fitting that the sun is shining on Broadway Cove. So my predecessor and successor, the great Supervisor Aaron Peskin, started sharing some of the background of this. And I actually think we could probably write a book about what it took to bring the community together. But let me just fill in a couple of more moments, because I've realized as I was coming over here, this project did really occupy time of former supervisors, my time when I was on the Board of Supervisors, my time in the legislature, and then obviously to where we are today. So it was mentioned that this area was really a collaboration between our Chinatown community and the neighborhoods around it. And as the former board chair of Chinatown Community Development Center, I think we are so much better for it. But I want to also go back to meetings I remember when I was on the Board of Supervisors, when the Barbary Coast Neighborhood Association, when the North Beach Neighbors, when so many of our neighborhood activists came together and said, how do we reimagine? How do we envision this place? And initially, we were thinking it was going to be just low-income affordable. But there was a decision made to not just mix up the moderate and low-income affordable, but to think about family housing, which, as a father of a 5-year-old, is so relevant to what we need to be as a city. And I want to just thank the neighborhood associations for being engaged in what really was, from my perspective, one of the best examples of how community collaborates with developers to get things done. Then fast forward a couple years later to 2018, and I remember conversations with Bridge and with the Jon Stewart Company. They wanted me to carry this little bill, AB 1423. They said it's going to be easy, it's going to be painless, but it involved amending another act, the Burton Act. And I was talking to John Burton last night with all of his colorful language, and I remember explaining to him what we were trying to do. We just want to make a little change to allow a surface parking lot to become family housing and childcare, which is what we had to do. We had to literally get state change to do it. And it took, my staff was looking at this, it took us 9 votes in the legislature to get it done. So that is one tiny little chapter of how we move this. But this project really came about because it takes the village of the public sector, led by our mayor and Elaine Forbes and Mo and the leadership from the city, working with the nonprofit sector, Bridge Housing, and so many of you who have been instrumental to this, working with the private sector, from financiers like Bank of America to the architects to our builders, to really make this happen. And I just want to thank you on behalf of all of us from the elected family for that. And then let me just end with one final thing, which is we are here, I think the sun is shining because Jon Stewart is looking upon us. And I want to say to Gussie and to the Stewart family, John was literally larger than life. I think Brad was talking about being shoulder to shoulder with him. I think Aaron and I, we probably would reach maybe his chest. But he was someone who was not only a Renaissance man, someone who was a true visionary, but his heart was in this community. And he sacrificed so much on what I remember him referring to those brain damage deals. This was probably one of those brain damage deals, right, Jack? Maybe. This, where we are today, is imbued with the spirit of so many, but certainly the spirit of the Stewart family and the spirit of John. So I just want to say to Gussie, we miss him. We love him. We know he's here with us today. And with that, the last thing I'll say is, let's keep doing this over and over again. Keep building projects like this that reflect the very best of who we are. Have a great morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. City Attorney. It's going to take me a while to kind of get that into the nomenclature because we all know you as such a housing warrior, and thank you for all that. As Jack said, we just had the easy part. We just had to build complicated mixed income, mixed use site on some toxic land in the middle of a pandemic. Nothing to it. Our next speaker, I think, is reflective of the neighborhood passion that residents here in District 3 have. Bruno Cantor is a local architect, but really a neighborhood advocate extraordinaire. He's the president of the board of North Beach Neighbors on the Northern Advisory Committee of the Port, so he's probably well known to our friend Elaine. And with that, I also, in talking about this with the rest of our team, learned that Mr. Cantor was also highly regarded by our friend John Stewart. With that, please welcome Bruno Cantor.
Good morning, everybody. Some of you may remember me saying a few words at the groundbreaking a couple of years ago, where I brought my 5-year-old daughter, Simone, with me. And I remember John pulled me aside and said, Bruno, don't bring your child up to the podium. She will upstage you. Well, I did, and she certainly did upstage me. And so I'm fortunate she's in school today. But yes, definitely working with John was such a pleasure, and he is sorely missed by all. But I fortunately was able to share this process of bringing affordable housing to my daughter in her native San Francisco, making it possible for families like ours to continue to live in this city. I'm an architect by trade, as Brad had suggested, and I'm so impressed by the architectural merits of these buildings. The architect, Bill Liddy, and his team did a wonderful job in the design of this complex. It's open, it's outward looking. This courtyard is inviting to the neighborhood, and it's just spectacular. The commercial spaces here activate the street front, and it's truly a place worthy of being called a gateway to North Beach. But what I think is even more impressive, as has been said, is how we got here. And the partnership between the public and private sectors and the community to bring much needed affordable housing, I believe, is unsurpassed in this case. The process was started early with extensive outreach to the community, even before an architect was selected. The massing studies were done with direct community input, facilitated by an architect who would not be later invited to see through the design, which really made the residents of the neighborhood feel heard and included in the process because we saw our input incorporated at a very early stage. I'd like to thank former Supervisor Julie Christensen, who brought in the senior housing component, and of course Supervisor Aaron Peskin for seeing the project through to its successful completion. And of course the leadership of the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development, just incredible what they've done here, and of course Bridge Housing and the John Stewart Company. I'm a process guy, and it was just an amazing process to be involved with. And so John Stewart Company and John Stewart himself, the leadership, was, again, unsurpassed. And of course the Port and the Northern Advisory Committee members who all contributed early into the process and in bringing the stakeholder participation. So I'll just end with saying that this is truly a city that my children will be proud to continue to live in. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruno. Well, it takes a lot of community spirit and a lot of community collaboration. It takes a lot of leadership from elected officials at every level. And since it's San Francisco, it takes a whole lot of money. Okay, so to paraphrase Willie Sutton, why did we go to Bank of America? Because that's where the money is. So I take great pleasure in both thanking and introducing our next speaker, the source, not personally, but her institution, of two key pieces of project financing, both our sizable construction loan and our low-income housing tax credit equity investment, a total of over $125 million in much-needed capital. So thank you, Liz Minnick, Bank of America. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and it is so wonderful to be here on this beautiful sunny day and to see so many faces that we were all here with 3 years ago when we did shovel that first bit of dirt, as Supervisor Peskin said as well. This is such a glorious, glorious development, buildings. We are so unbelievably honored to be a part of it. Last year in 2020, Bank of America was able to provide a record $5.9 billion in financing for affordable developments across the United States. This led to 13,000 affordable units, inclusive of 6,000 green units, 2,400 units for seniors, and 1,600 units for veterans, people with special needs, and formerly homeless individuals. Bank of America is proud to call San Francisco our founding city, with our deep, deep roots here from rebuilding after the 1904 earthquakes, financing our two great bridges, and of course, developments like this. Also incredibly proud of our $2.2 billion commitment we had through the San Francisco RAD process as well, which redeveloped over 3,500 units at 29 different properties. We'd like to continue the thanks today and thank our partners both at Bridge Housing and the John Stewart Company, of course, Mayor Breed and her team at the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development, the San Francisco Housing Authority and their partners at HUD, the Port of San Francisco, and everyone else who's worked to make this development possible, inclusive of our team at Bank of America. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. I've been at a number of these events and followed the Bank of America representative. We couldn't be here without the long history. These are complicated projects, and you know, our partners at the Mayor's Office of Housing are experts at helping us structure, but we do rely on our lenders to, you know, bend a little when we need them to on a variety of issues, some of which have come up today. So thank you and thank Bank of America for your ongoing, unwavering support. We're a little off script, as you've seen, but we've got the pinch hitter coming up here in just a minute. But before I introduce her, it's a rare opportunity for people like me that are deeply involved in the development process. I get to meet neighbors, I get to meet elected officials, but I'm one step removed from our residents, our customers, and the people that we're doing this work for. So I always relish a chance when there's a resident who's courageous enough to step up and tell their story about what this housing means to them. So with that, I'm very happy to introduce Maritza Vega, a resident of Broadway Cove, who's graciously offered to share her thoughts about her new home. Thank you, Maritza.
Sorry, a little nervous. Hi, my name is Maritza Vega, a mother of 3.5 young men. One of them is only 5, that's why he's a half. And I'm a mother of 2 service dogs. Okay.
People want to hear what you go.
Okay. I'm a mother. We are very thankful to be a part of this new community that is inclusive of multiple backgrounds, which is the epitome of what it is to be a San Franciscan. Our journey to get here seemed long in the beginning, but in reality, the transition happened in less than a year, which in pandemic times and accounting for the laborious approval processing times, it was the quickest transition into this beautiful new complex. I am very thankful that Cheryl, Chris, Alyssa, my adult sons, and myself stuck to the paperwork process because we are happy and have never felt as safe and comfortable as we do now. I am also thankful for my Shanti worker, Gina, that encouraged me to follow through and to hold a positive mindset, which we all know is hard to maintain as a pandemic turned a year old. This is our home, and we can move on comfortably onto other essential building blocks of our lives. The building is essential. I load dishes in the dishwasher, which I've never had before, as I simultaneously wash laundry down the hall so that I can get homework done and graduate as a well-earning nurse in the future. And hopefully the cycle will continue. As I gain reasonable income and buy a home, we will be able to move out, and the unit that we currently dwell in shall open up for another needy family to benefit from this well and strategically built living complex with fancy electronic disposable chutes. Yeah, so thank you for everybody that came together to make this possible for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maritza. I would love to be here in a year or two and see how you and your boys are doing and see them blossom at this really spectacular location and fantastic neighborhood. I hope you're able to take full advantage of all the opportunities that are right here on your doorstep. Well, a little bit of drama here today. It's my pleasure to introduce Mayor London Breed, but before I do, I wanted to share a little story that I heard from a little bird about the mayor's weekend. As a group of fourth graders were trick-or-treating in their neighborhood of Bernal Heights, they knocked on a door and out burst Carmen Miranda in full fruit-adorned regalia. It was clear to them that she was having at least as much fun as they were. And of course, as San Francisco kids, they actually knew who their elected officials were. And I have it on great authority that although they had a really good time that night, you made that evening very memorable. So with that, please join me in welcoming our always fun housing warrior, Mayor London Breed.
Thank you, Brad, and it's so great to be here today with all of you, just to celebrate this incredible project of Maritza and her boys and what this means for their life. This is what is so important to us as a city and why I know many of us who are here do this work. I know it's why for over 50 years John Stewart did this work. And I remember in 2019 when we broke ground on this property, a completely empty lot, we had a number of festivities, and John, who retired many years ago, but still did not continue to work. Jack, I know, oftentimes Jack was like, I thought I was the boss. It's like, nah, you're not the boss, even though John has said I'm retired, right? He was very instrumental in the John Stewart Company, not just starting it, but making it into what it became for affordable housing for 50 years in San Francisco. And I met John over 20 years ago when I worked on Treasure Island right out of college. And what was so amazing about him and why he stood out to me is because at the time, we had, John Stewart had taken over the property management of the former military housing that was located on the island. And some of that housing was provided to formerly homeless veterans and families and people. And John said, wait a minute, these are people who are formerly homeless. When they move in, how are they gonna get furniture? How are they gonna get a coffee maker? I remember him talking about a coffee maker. And he helped work on a program that was developed in Treasure Island that allowed many of those families to go shopping at this warehouse where staging furniture existed for realtors who use staging furniture to make all these great properties look good, and people got to go there and pick out everything that they wanted. And I remember when I went on one of those trips, I was putting my own little Post-it notes on things that I wanted in my place, but that's the kind of person he was, and that's why a project like this was so important to him. It's because it's going to serve a wide spectrum of San Franciscans, which I'm sure we talked about a little bit earlier before I had a chance to get here. And when thinking about affordable housing in San Francisco and the challenges that exist with various families, people come from all backgrounds, all incomes, all challenges. Folks who are formerly homeless now live here. People who have incomes that may seem like a lot of money, but it's not for San Francisco, are going to live here. We even in the city and county of San Francisco brought down the affordability so that those seniors who are extremely low income and who may not have been able to qualify will be able to live here. Section 8 vouchers are going to be very helpful in helping to afford this place, making sure that we have mixed income levels of people that build on the strong diversity that exists in our city. This is a community. It's not just housing. It's a home for those families who are moving in and who are going to be enjoying not just the amenities and the ground floor retail and the child care and the community space, but each other. If this pandemic has not taught us anything, it definitely should have taught us how important the value is of being around one another, of spending time together, of developing partnerships and relationships and building community. And the kids here are going to be hanging out with some of the seniors and hearing about stories of their lives, spending time with one another, developing those relationships. So this is really an incredible milestone for our city. And really, even though it pretty much started many, many years ago, I think David Chiu was actually on the Board of Supervisors, but the fact that we broke ground in 2019 and it's 2021 and people are moving in, that is incredible. And I want to thank so many of our city workforce, the Mayor's Office of Housing, Eric Shaw is here today, Elaine Forbes, I don't know if she's here, but oh, there you are, right in the front row, Elaine. These masks throw me off a little bit. Elaine, with the port, she had to do some maneuvering to get this property because, as you remember, before the '89 earthquake, remember when the freeway was here and actually, it shut down, I think, before that. I can't remember. Anyway, a long, long time ago, this used to be a freeway, and now it's housing. So that's amazing, and we're so grateful that Bridge and John Stewart got together to create this wonderful village, this wonderful community, and just a step further in meeting our housing goals in San Francisco to ensure that people are housed, that they're living in affordable, safe spaces in our city with dignity. Thank you all so much for being here today to celebrate.
Thank you very much, Mayor Breed. And it's absolutely clear to me why you and John were such kindred spirits, because I think he dressed up as Carmen Miranda once for Halloween too. But John, one of the mentoring he gave me was, this is all so hard, and it takes a long time and a lot of work, and a lot of things go sideways along the way. You have to enjoy yourself along the way. You have to stop, smell the roses, have a laugh, bond with the people you're working next to, who you're shoulder to shoulder with as you persevere through these challenges. And it's, and then have some fun, and then enjoy yourself. And I think you've got that down. So, okay, well done. Anyway, and you know, in terms of the anecdotes, like, appreciate very much your comments, Maritza. So, I mean, the things that we're experiencing as property managers, we do the lease up, and we get to, it's really wonderful to be the ones who get to hand the keys to people who get their first dishwasher, or if somebody's homeless, their first locking door, or maybe the first roof over their head in literally decades. And if you aren't on the streets because you're traumatized, by the time you're on the streets, you are traumatized. So helping people get off the streets and back into conventional housing units, welcoming them back into civil society, if you will, is also incredibly rewarding and takes some work, because I don't want to take their stuff away from them that they've been guarding on the corner for 20 years. So we've found ways to let people hang on to their stuff, make sure it doesn't bring unfortunate vermin into the project, but let them hang on to it, right? Bake it in our oven, no bed bugs, and we've learned a lot along the way, because that is where the rubber hits the road. When you hand that key, or you hand the welcome basket, or you let them go through the furniture warehouse on Treasure Island, and they become housed and they rejoin our society in the way that they are meant to be part of it. So thank you for that. We have some examples of, You know, we have a 95-year-old certificate of preference holder who's moved into 735 Davis, and we said, you've had this COP for a long time. She's like, you finally built something I wanted to move into. I'm like, okay, fair enough, fair enough. And we have households, multi-generational households, where the grandparents live in 735 Davis, but the kids and their grandkids live in the Broadway Cove. So exactly what the mayor was just talking about, both familial and intergenerational coming together. And I think right here in the center of the muse, in the center of the walkway, is what John had in mind when he said, we've got to have this crossroads in the middle of this thing. We've got to invite our neighborhood partners into the property so it's not a standoffish fortress of affordable housing. It is a welcoming, inclusive place. So, anyway, sorry, I never met a Mike I didn't like. Okay, that's a John line. I wrote a lot of his material too, by the way, just for the record, the good stuff. Anyway, final step, or close to final step. Thanks for everybody bearing with us here. We're going to ask our two organizational leads, our project managers from Bridge and the John Stewart Company, Don Lusty, our Director of Housing at JSCO, and Marie DeBoer, who Senior VP, some grand exalted title I just promoted you to, at Bridge Housing. Congratulations. If the two of you could come up and recognize a few of our many unsung heroes. Thank you.
Hello, all. 2 years ago, we stood here, and it was also a sunny day, as everybody's mentioning. And it was an empty parking lot, and these two buildings went up with incredible speed. We wanted to take some time and thank all the firms that were involved and all the staff in doing so. And at Bridge Housing, many people touched this project. Wanted to first all thank Lynn Hikita and her communications department for providing this event today, planning it so wonderfully with the weather and everything. Our services department, who's helped bring together the services for this place, including the childcare, Susan Neufeld and her team. And I also wanted to thank our former CEO, Cynthia Parker, who had the vision and the support for this project. But last but not least, our project manager, Will Haywood, who's here today. Raise your hand if you're here. Who was instrumental in bringing this project to a close, brought it in on time and on budget, which is amazing. And Don Lusty here with the John Stewart Company will thank the folks at John Stewart Company. And I just wanted to mention that it was a privilege to work with the John Stewart Company. Just like Brad and Jack said, even on the staff level, it was a perfect joint venture, and we really enjoyed it. It was difficult, but we also had some fun along the way.
Good morning. Thanks, Marie. It's been great working with Bridge on this project, and I want to thank Will and Marie and the whole Bridge machine and team for all their hard work, and we did have some fun along the way, which is great. I also want to thank the fantastic job that the John Stewart Company property management staff have done in leasing up these projects. As Maritza said, it's a complicated process, and during a pandemic, they've done an amazingly good job. Is it me? Let me see. Yes. We also want to thank our city partners at MOCD. They truly have been colleagues and partners on this project, and especially Faith Kirkpatrick, who is our longtime project manager at Mo.
Thanks, Don. And the Port of San Francisco was also instrumental. At the staff level, we worked on a daily basis with Ricky Tajani, and we worked with Rebecca Benassini and, Michael Martin. Without them, we wouldn't have come to this place. They were instrumental in donating the land with a ground lease to this project, but their staff was really incredible to work with. We also wanted to mention Letty Madam Statham, our architect for this site. And they were actually more than an architect. As you heard earlier from both Brad and from Jack, they were involved early on in this project in the community outreach efforts. They worked with the community, with the neighbors, with Bruno Cantor from North Beach Neighbors and the Barbary Coast Neighborhood Association, who was instrumental in providing input early on, and all of their visions and their support was implemented in this project. And Bill Letty at Letty Made Him Stacy was part from it from day one, close friend of Jon Stewart's, and Jon Stewart and Bill Letty really led the community outreach and this project. So it was a really great partnership with our architect. And the two project managers at Letty Made Him Stacy's that I wanted to mention is Aaron Thornton. Without you, Aaron, I don't know how we would have gotten it done. And Mario Russo, who worked on the project during construction. It was an incredible feat. Thank you, guys.
I also wanted to acknowledge the design work of Andy Cochran Landscape Architects. They did a fantastic job on the building's open spaces, and they're responsible for the design of this mid-block passage and this breezeway, which, as folks know, John was passionate about and really fought hard to maintain. I'm going to skip over here. I also want to thank Cahill and Matt Irwin in particular and his whole A-team. Cahill was amazing. They were always there. They were always willing to work with us in a collaborative spirit. And they brought both projects in under budget and on time.
Yep. Thank you, Cahill, for all your work. And in addition to a great contractor, we also had a great construction manager who was instrumental in getting the project started. CM Squared and Larry Pace, who couldn't be here today, shepherded this project through both on a cost basis and schedule basis. So we're very grateful for their time.
We often say that these projects are so complicated that only attorneys could love them. And so it's really nice when you have attorneys who are smart and you like to work with. And I want to thank Heather and Amy at Goldfarb and Lippman in particular, and Charles Olson at Lubin and Olson, who worked out sorted out the air rights pieces for this.
Right. And we also wanted to Lastly, wanted to thank the staff that worked at both B of A and at Barings who provided the necessary funding for this project. So B of A provided both the construction debt and the equity, and Barings provided the permanent financing for 88 Broadway. So thank you to the staff for your help on getting this project closed and seeing it through construction and completion.
I think that's all from us, right?
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. And we're going to turn this over to Jack, who can finish the ceremony.
Thank you, Don.
Yeah.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks very much. And yeah, it's been a sunny morning. It's clouding up. I think John might think it's running a little long. So we're going to just sort of hit the gas pedal here. After devoting decades of his life to developing and managing affordable housing throughout California and the country, and many years of his life to Broadway Cove and 735 Davis, as many people have mentioned, we're greatly saddened that John passed away last year before he could see it completed. As mentioned earlier, John started making presentations at the port on Seawall Lot 322-1 years before the project started, and obviously working through with the neighborhood groups to think about what could be done. He attended numerous community neighborhood association meetings. I can't list the many ways he contributed to affordable housing in the city and the state, and here at Broadway Cove and 735. He was overjoyed to see the project starting construction last year, and honestly, I think I really do feel his presence with us here today, especially in the hearts of everyone who's spoken about him. I mean, they say that people live on in what they leave behind in the hearts of the people that they've interacted with. And if that's true, I think John's living on in a way that few of us have any hopes of doing, given how he has touched so many people so sincerely and so honestly over the course of his lifetime in the pursuit of his passion of affordable housing here, especially in his hometown and in his neighborhood. It's an honor to carry on his legacy, and we're all very proud of this beautiful project, which he contributed so much to helping bring to fruition. And that's why we have dedicated a big rock with a plaque for John. He was the big guy, that's the big rock. And to help me unveil this plaque honoring John, I would love to ask Gussie Stewart to join me over here at The Rock. And welcome to The Rock. Okay, I've done ribbon cuttings before, but I don't think I've actually done plaque unveilings before. Brad, you want a hand on this flap here? Because we're just going to ceremonially, ready? All right, oh, okay. I think simply reading the plaque will do it and John the most justice. So if you would just bear with me. In memory of John K. Stewart, 1934 to 2020. Beloved husband, father, friend, and founder of the John Stewart Company. His lifelong commitment was building well-designed, high-quality, affordable housing throughout California. He was a giant of a man in every way and used his great intelligence, humor, and business skills to bring people together to make housing like this a reality. Thank you, John. Gussie, can I ask you to just say a couple words if you're so. Why don't you come up to the dais? We're kind of hiding behind a bush. There we go.
Oh, that's right. This need that too. I want to continue the thanks. This means the world to me. This is the first and only memorial of its kind for John. And it's very hard to have a beloved person die in the middle of a pandemic. And so at last we can celebrate him. And I can't thank all of the team that made this project possible for allowing this plaque to be here to celebrate this wonderful passageway and this absolutely beautiful project. So thank you all. Thank you, Jack, particularly, and everyone who was part of this.
Thanks, Gussie. And while I know you'd probably kill me for saying this, I would just also like to thank you and John for the very significant personal contribution that you made to the construction costs of our child care center down at the end of the Paseo. So it wasn't just talk, and it wasn't just time. It was work, wisdom, and wealth that they devoted. So thank you so much for that. Thank you. That's it for this morning. Many thanks to my co-MC, Brad Wiblin. No, it's not what we're going to do. Oh, no, I'm getting to that. Okay. Thanks to co-MC, our partner Bridge, all the elected leaders and funders, and all of you for attending. But let's get some dignitaries up here and cut this ribbon, shall we? Okay, let's do it. Thank you, everyone.
Are you guys ready?
Are you guys ready?
Are you guys ready?
Wait, that's my job.
Okay, that is your job.
I'm a one-woman show.
You got it.
5,